Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. Please allow me to note well in advance, this story is not mine. It's actually a popular tale in a town I once lived in, Charleston, South Carolina, and centers around a homeowner who got fed up with a movie producer's antics. There will be a note at the end about the person this story concerns, for those interested. When movie producers need locations for period films set in colonial or 19th century America, they often choose Charleston due to its historic architecture, wide streets, and numerous parks. They remove the hanging moss, cover the roads with dirt, and transform sections of the city to represent various historical periods, from early Boston to old London or Paris. Typically, producers pay homeowners around $5,000 for using their houses as background settings. It's standard practice, as one local resident told me. They're using our property after all. The homeowners have to follow certain rules: no modern lighting visible, no exiting through street-facing doors, and all vehicles must be moved off-site. In 2015, a producer arrived from Hollywood to film a streaming service documentary about the Civil War era. The production team approached the city council for permits and sent notices to homeowners about the filming schedule. However, they included a shocking detail. They wouldn't be paying homeowners for using their properties as backdrops. "This is absolutely ridiculous," one homeowner was heard saying at a community meeting. "They can't just come here and use our homes for free." The homeowners approached the city council for support, but were told by the mayor, "It's your civic responsibility to support the arts and tourism in our city." Most residents reluctantly agreed, but one homeowner, Thomas Richardson, refused to accept this. "You want civic duty? I'll show you civic duty," he muttered after leaving the council meeting. Richardson began his campaign of resistance. First, he parked his SUV prominently in his driveway. When it was towed, he threatened to sue. "You can't just remove my property without compensation," he argued with the production manager, who simply waved him away. When he tried to prevent them from filming his house, the city stepped in. "Mr. Richardson, you need to cooperate," the city attorney warned him. "We'll see about that," Richardson responded with a slight smile. On the main filming day, Richardson executed his master plan. He hung an enormous Confederate flag from his upper window, knowing it would be completely inappropriate for the documentary's time period. The production team was horrified. "Cut! Cut everything!" the director shouted. "When did that flag go up? Are all our previous shots ruined?" The production company ran to the city for help. The council's response was telling. "It's his First Amendment right, though this might have been avoided if you'd followed our local customs regarding compensation." The producer, realizing the severity of the situation, approached Richardson's house. "Please, we need to talk about this," he pleaded. Richardson's lawyer responded, "My client is willing to remove the flag for a price." The production company finally agreed to pay all homeowners the standard fee. The flag came down, and filming concluded shortly after. Some say if you watch the documentary carefully, you can spot the Confederate flag in several background shots. This incident cost the production company significantly in both money and time, as they spent months reviewing footage to identify and reshoot scenes with the flag visible. Richardson later became infamous in Charleston, though not for this incident. He was a prominent antiques dealer and preservationist who spent decades protecting Charleston's historic district. In 2017, he was arrested for the alleged murder of his 25-year-old assistant, Michael Hayes, with whom he had a relationship. After 3 trials, setting a South Carolina record, Richardson was acquitted in 2022. He passed away in 2023 from complications related to pneumonia. His story inspired the best-selling book Whispers in the Holy City and its subsequent film adaptation. The next one is an entitled People's Story. I never wanted to live in a homeowner association neighborhood, but when my company transferred me to their headquarters in Phoenix, the only houses available in my price range were in homeowner association communities. I found a decent townhouse in what seemed like a quiet development. The real estate agent assured me the homeowner association was hands-off, and the fees were reasonable. That should have been my first red flag. Within a week of moving in, I met Gerald, the homeowner association president. He was this middle-aged guy who walked around the neighborhood like he owned the place, clipboard in hand, writing up violations. He made it his mission to introduce himself by leaving a notice on my door about my welcome mat being non-compliant with homeowner association regulations. I work from home most days, and I get a lot of packages delivered, computer parts, office supplies, and stuff I order online. About 2 months after moving in, I noticed packages started going missing. At first I thought it was just delivery mistakes or porch pirates. I filed claims with Amazon and FedEx, got refunds, and didn't think much of it. Then one day, I got a notification from my Ring doorbell while on a Zoom call. I checked the feed and saw Gerald in his typical khakis and polo shirt, picking up my package and walking away with it. I was stunned. I watched him do this 2 more times that week. I called the police non-emergency line to file a report, but they said without proof he wasn't returning the packages, they couldn't do much. So I decided to set up a trap. I ordered several items on Amazon and made sure they would all arrive on the same day. I also bought an Apple AirTag and a tile tracker. The morning the packages were supposed to arrive, I set up my old iPhone on a window ledge recording the front door and waited. Like clockwork, Gerald showed up about an hour after the packages were delivered. Through my Ring camera, I heard him muttering about security inspections as he picked up my boxes. I let him walk away with them, watching the tracking dots move on my phone's screen. The trackers led straight to his house 3 streets over. I called the police again, this time with evidence of theft in progress. While waiting for them to arrive, I checked my security footage and noticed Gerald had been stealing packages from other neighbors too. When the police showed up, Gerald tried to play it off as his duty as homeowner association president to inspect suspicious packages. The officers weren't buying it. They asked to search his garage, and that's when things got interesting. He had a whole setup in there, shelves full of unopened packages addressed to different houses in the neighborhood. The police found over $5,000 worth of stolen items. There were electronics, clothes, even medication deliveries he'd taken. Gerald was arrested for mail theft and possession of stolen property. The police took photos of everything and told residents to come identify their missing packages. It turned out he'd been doing this for months before I moved in. The homeowner association board called an emergency meeting. Gerald's wife tried to defend him, saying he was protecting the community from suspicious deliveries. Some older residents actually supported this nonsense, but most people were furious about having their packages stolen. I filed a civil suit against Gerald for the value of my stolen packages plus damages. Other neighbors joined in with a class action lawsuit. During the proceedings, we discovered Gerald had been using homeowner association funds to pay for his legal defense without board approval. That led to additional charges of embezzlement. In the end, Gerald pleaded guilty to multiple counts of mail theft and fraud. He got 18 months in prison and had to pay restitution to everyone he stole from. His wife moved away shortly after he went to jail, and they eventually lost their house to foreclosure. The homeowner association elected a new board, and they immediately changed the rules to explicitly prohibit any inspection of residents' packages. They also installed security cameras at all entrance points to prevent future porch pirates. I still live in the neighborhood, but now my packages arrive safely. Sometimes when I see the "Gerald was here" sign that someone put up near his old house, I can't help but laugh at how his security inspections landed him in federal prison. The whole experience taught me that even in a homeowner association, you have to stand up to people who abuse their authority. Gerald thought his position gave him the right to steal from his neighbors, but in the end, justice prevailed. I just wish I'd set up those cameras sooner. The best part? The new homeowner association president delivered a letter apologizing to all residents and refunding a portion of our homeowner association fees that Gerald had misused. They also amended the bylaws to require 2-person approval for any security measures. Sometimes it takes a scandal to bring positive change. The next one is a petty revenge story. Years ago, in the far-off land of the mid-90s, I worked in the technology side of a nonprofit refurbishing and giving away equipment that had come off lease. I am out. I make no bones about it. Pride flag in my part of the warehouse, no question. I had to initially out myself when the office manager accused me of sexual harassment. Our board asked if I did. Nope. Gay. Questions over, and she moved on to harass other people. Enter my new coworker. Name's changed. He teased me constantly and asked inappropriate questions and gave me crap about being on the news at Pride Fest. We were friends and I liked the guy still, but one day I had had enough. There was a clothing company that specialized in super weird clothes and underwear. Think I am the gayest pirate ever and check out my sparkly thong. So I signed my coworker up. The name is important. His name was Stephen O'Rourke. So I signed him up as Miss Stephen O'Dork ESQ. A few weeks later, the mail comes, and here is this beautiful catalog addressed to Ms. O'Dork. And then they sold his name and it became a daily exercise to see what new fun variation on his name and what porn advertisement was showing up that day. I got written up and he did not see the humor in it until much later. The guy that wrote me up thought it was low class but hilarious. Steven says he got mail until the day he left. 30 years later, I see this a little problematic, but I still feel like it was the best I could do, and to Steven's credit, he apologized for being a jackass, and we are friends to this day. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I've been working as a lead in an IT firm from India that supports a US client. I have a manager here in India who approves my PTO, handles performance reviews, and meets with us a few times a month. His and the management's view is that the work we do is for the client, but we should also contribute to the organization. So we're encouraged to take up additional tasks like recruiting or preparing business reviews. Essentially, we need to be available during the day. I also have another manager in the USA who is Indian as well. He coordinates with the customer and handles any escalations related to our work. His main concern is ensuring there are zero escalations from the client. The clients assign us projects and we interact with them directly. We have meetings every day, usually lasting at least 2 hours. Since we're paid a monthly salary, there's no extra money for additional hours worked. Both managers take advantage of this. There are no strict working hours, but we must be available from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. IST, which corresponds to 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. US time. Typically, we start working at 10 a.m., continue until 5 p.m., and then resume from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sometimes meetings with clients extend an extra 30 minutes to an hour. Our US manager connects with us after the meetings with client. One day I had a lot of work to finish and decided to work from home instead of commuting. I had a 3-hour client meeting followed by a knowledge transition session, so I was fully occupied. The on-site manager asked me to schedule a meeting with him. I told him my day was packed till midnight. He refused and said he needed 30 minutes of my time. I asked if he could join a little earlier before my meetings, but he said no. Then I asked, is 12 a.m. fine for him? He said yes and scheduled a meeting at 12 a.m. All happened over Teams chat. I decided to take his own words against him, so I scheduled the meeting for 12 a.m. his time, which was 10 a.m. the next day for me, thinking, if you expect me to be available at midnight, why not you? That was the last time he expected me to be available post-midnight. The next one is an entitled people's story. I, 20F, have a younger brother, 17M, who was diagnosed with autism when he was around 2 years old. He is very social, but socially naive and can't read well or do basic math. While he is 17 physically, he is about 10, 12 mentally. My mother, 50F, has spoiled him rotten since he was a child, and it's turned him into an entitled asshole. My brother has our mother wrapped around his finger. Over the years, he has learned to manipulate her to get what he wants. He knows how to wear her down, nagging her until she gives him what she wants. For example, he'll ask her to buy him something and constantly berate her and whine about it until she gives in. He knows she won't put her foot down. She is completely unaware of his manipulation and swears up and down she is in full control. Everybody else is aware of his manipulation except her. One time I had some friends over from school and they lamented to me that my brother acted completely different around my family than he did other students. To everybody outside of our house, he's a lively guy who may ask a lot of questions, but has everybody's best interest in mind. At home, however, he speaks over everybody and has to be the center of conversation. If we are in the car and having a conversation outside of him, he will shout over us and interject with something completely off topic in order to center himself. My mom just lets it happen, since if she doesn't, he will just keep saying, "Mom, Mom, Mom," over and over. He's been manipulative since he was a child. He had a strict bedtime of 8 p.m., or so that's what it was supposed to be. Even in elementary school, he was figuring out ways to get what he wanted. My mom would call for him to come for dinner at 7:30, but he would procrastinate by playing video games and not come down until 8, his bedtime. My mom didn't want him to starve, which is valid, but instead of punishing him by taking away the video games, she just let him do it night after night after night with no preventative measures. Even though I was a child, I could see right through it. One time I was visiting from college and my mom wanted the three of us to go see a movie. My brother whined and whined about me going, saying he wanted it to just be him and out mother. To his dismay, I got a ticket. Then half an hour later, 2 hours before the movie, my brother starts yelling that his friend is coming with us. We had only bought 3 tickets, and there weren't any left by our seats. Instead of telling him no, my mother started to scramble to find a spot for my brother's friend to sit. I ended up having to put my foot down, saying that he made such a fuss about me coming instead of just the 2 of them that he shouldn't be inviting anybody else. Thankfully, I was actually listened to this time. What I'm not listened to, however, is the dreaded topic of social media. My brother is very close to becoming a lolco. He thankfully hasn't gone viral yet, but he's obsessed with fame and posting whatever comes to mind on social media. This has gotten him in trouble at school for posting inappropriate content. My father has taken away his phone camera and his social media multiple times, as well as limited my brother's screen time. However, my brother will whine and throw a tantrum about it to my mom, which causes her to go to my dad and get him to change it. My dad changes it back, since if he doesn't, it will start a massive argument between him and my mother. She's where my brother gets his entitled personality from. I've tried telling him over and over that this is a horrible idea, even giving them examples of lolcos such as Chris Chan and Daniel Larson, people I know my brother has the potential to become like. Recently, he has developed epilepsy and started having seizures, which has given him another reason to be coddled by my mother. Obviously, I don't want him to have a stress-induced seizure, but he creates conflict anytime I'm around. Just last night at around midnight, he was blasting music down the hallway. This has been a problem for years now, but my parents think I'm overreacting about it. I knocked on his door and told him to turn it down. He said no, and that he was going to turn it up after I went back to bed. He did, so I went and got my father. There was a whole argument between them where my brother lied repeatedly, saying he hadn't heard me despite our conversation and that he wasn't playing anything. Thankfully, my dad, who is aware of his manipulation, saw right through it. He got his phone taken away, but of course he didn't see himself in the wrong because in his mind he can't be in the wrong. He yelled things to me such as, "Fuck you! This is your fault! And I don't care about my sisters." Well, this morning I was lamenting to my mom about how frustrated I was. I'm only home for the week, and the least he could do was be decent. There's no reason I can't get a good night's sleep in my own home. My father overheard the conversation and came in, saying I needed to be less agitated when talking about my brother to my parents. I've been dealing with his BS for years, and I told my father that I was, in fact, agitated, and those were my true feelings. He went on a bit of a tangent about how my brother's epilepsy and his medication are making him agitated and irritable. I was shocked. My brother has always been an asshole. My dad said he wasn't excusing it, but it definitely came across as it. Anyways, I'm mainly annoyed that there is now another reason for my brother to be coddled while my sister and I helplessly watch. One of my main issues with it is that I also have my fair share of mental problems that are mostly ignored because of him. I have anxiety, but mine comes in second to his. My mom will mention that yelling makes him anxious and that I shouldn't yell at him because of it, as if all the stuff he does doesn't stress me out. Every time I talk to him, I worry that I'm going to be insulted. He will pick you apart if you let him. He insults my mother on what she wears all the time, and he has started to comment on my weight despite me being relatively skinny. He's overall a crappy person, and my parents are starting to realize that. Though I don't think my mom can truly come to terms with the fact that not only has she raised her son into an entitled asshole, but also that he has been manipulating her basically ever since he was born. The next one is an entitled parent story. I often go to the pool once or twice a week to stay in shape and to relax. I went there Saturday evening. The pool I go to has two different pools. A fun one with slides and bubbles and things like that, mainly for children or people who just want to relax, and a real one, where people swim in lanes. In the real one, there are two sides, one for experienced swimmers that is pretty deep, around 3-4 meters, and one for people who are learning that is pretty shallow. It is a well-known rule that people who can't really swim well can't go in the deep part, and you can't stop or play in there. It's meant for serious swimming. I was swimming in the deep part, and while I was doing backstroke, I feel my hand hit something. I turned around and saw a young kid that was 6 or 7. I told him that he shouldn't be there because people were going pretty fast and he could get hurt by other swimmers. While I was talking to him, I noticed that he wasn't swimming very well. He was doing weird movements and barely keeping his head above the water. So I got out of the pool with him and looked for his mom. At this pool, parents that accompany children but don't swim can get inside without paying and just sit around the pool, which is what the mom did. We find her looking at her phone, and I tell her that it was pretty dangerous for her child to be in the deep end of the pool when he didn't know how to swim well and could get hit by swimmers. She looks up, clearly annoyed, and tells me, "It's okay, he's just a kid." I told her that I wasn't upset at him, I was just concerned for his safety. She told me that if I really was concerned for his safety, I would have taught him how to swim instead of making him get out, and that it would be safer for him if I taught him. I told her that that wasn't my role, but she started saying that it wasn't nice of him and that I should help a child when I saw that he was in distress. I told her that I wouldn't because 1, I'm not qualified to teach children. 2, it's a huge liability and I don't want to be responsible for the boy's life. 3, I don't get paid to do this. And 4, I'm here to relax. She started telling me that I was selfish for not sharing my skills, that I swam well enough to teach children, that she wasn't asking for a lot of my time, that I should be happy to help other people, etc. I said no again, and she looked at me and said, "I can't believe this," while shaking her head. Well, I can't believe this either. She was very entitled and endangering her child. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.